100 Mega Shock Neo Geo!
いくつもの伝説が生まれ、そして消えてゆく。狼は眠らない。画廊伝説スペシャル
SNK.
What's going on, guys? Recommend here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Neo Geo X Pro Gear Spec Advanced Entertainment System arcade stick. This is the USB version that came out for the Neo Geo X a couple of years ago, and they can commonly be found now on Amazon and AliExpress and eBay, hovering around the $40 price point. And my question is it worth it? I'll let you guys know my thoughts. So as mentioned prior, it runs around $40 and it looks pretty close to an original Neo Geo stick. I unfortunately don't have one anymore. It's been a while, so I can't give an exact estimate of how close it is, but it looks pretty close from memory. You have the 4 buttons, you have your select and start, has the same, pretty much overall same aesthetic, and it's supposed to be close to a 1-1 recreation of it, but I don't think it feels that way. Let's start with the feel. The feel is pretty cheap. This thing is featherweight. I mean, I think a child could throw this around. It's probably lighter than some balloons, you know, if I was joking around, but all kidding aside, it is very light. The plastic, as you can see, it flexes very easily. It has a lot of flex to it. Very cheap, very hollow. I mean, you can hear that. Here's a cheap PlayStation 2 stick here from Mayflash that's about the same price. And you can hear it's a lot more solid. Hollow, a little more solid. And, you know, and it's hollow as well, but as you can see, it's just made out of a much sturdier material. You can hear there's some micro switches in there, which is a good thing. But you can hear the inside of the controller literally banging up against the case. It's really cheap, and I'm frankly amazed at how cheap this thing is built, considering the price. And $40 is not a lot, but when you can get something like this Mayflash PS2 controller, which is not the greatest controller. I'm not gonna say it's some pro level thing, but it's actually decent for, you know, for casual gaming. But you can get something like this for the same price as this. You have to really consider, you know, how you want to spend your money or what your priorities are. Now, in terms of this controller, if you look at the bottom of it, there's no metal base. It's also complete plastic. It's the same. I mean, you can hear how hollow and thin this thing is. Very, very lightweight plastic here. Very thin. Here's a very thin USB cable as well. You know, you're not gonna get thick, super high quality cable. So it's kind of disappointing to see something with a Neo Geo game, Neo Geo name, this cheap out there. You know, this cheaply built. You know, the price is okay, but the build quality is just terrible. Now, the question is, how well does it play?
狼は眠らない。画廊伝説スペシャル
So let's try this out with the MiSTer core. This is the Neo Geo core by Furtek for obviously the Neo Geo. And plugging it in, the controller was detected just fine. It obviously wasn't auto configured, so you have to spend about a minute or two just getting the buttons set up. You will probably need a keyboard depending on what you're setting this up for, because it's just extra buttons. Then you need the keyboard to skip certain things, but overall it's not a bad experience. So let's put in our coins here. And I will say, even set up this way, the controller is pretty comfortable. You know, it has kind of this downward slant here that makes it comfortable depending on the angle that you're playing at. So right now it feels fairly comfortable considering what it is. Again, I can't get over how cheap it feels, but it is fairly responsive, which is surprising. So the lag is, at least I don't really feel any crazy amount of lag. It feels pretty good to play. And of course, you know, a lot of that is because of my setup here, and of course the amazing work that Furtek has done on this Neo Geo core, as well as the entire MiSTer team. They've taken this D10 Nano and truly have made it into a fantastic product. You know, and strangely enough, again, even though this is, again, I'm gonna repeat this, it's gonna sound like a broken record, even though it feels cheap, you know, it feels authentic in the sense that, you know, it's, when you're playing Neo Geo and it has this 4-button layout here just like this, you know, it feels like what you're supposed to be playing. Now obviously it's not gonna compare to the real thing, but it feels much better than playing with, say, a 6-button Street Fighter style controller where there's only 3 buttons on top and 3 on the bottom. This just feels closer to the actual experience, even with this hollow plastic. Now again, going on, you know, my gripes with how cheap this thing feels. If you look here at this controller, you can see how easy this thing can be pulled out. But it is, you know, playable. You know, the game actually plays well. Now, let's change to ROM over to a fighting game, which is where you really, you know, should be testing these type of games, especially considering that the Neo Geo, you know, has such a heavy amount of fighting games in its library. So let's try King of Fighters 95, since it's one of the faster KOFs, and also because the MiSTer core is still, you know, still needs some work, and this is one of the few KOFs that'll load. Now, not to say it'll be perfect or anything, but you know, it does require some finagling sometimes. So let's take this and let's take Mr. Kusanagi. Obviously, I have this on US settings, if you know what I'm talking about right here. Terry and Kyo. I'll leave Terry the God Killer for last. Probably won't be playing that long, but I just wanted you guys to see how this works with a fighting game. So it feels good so far. You know, this is not even my first impressions of it. I've had this stick for about a week, and I have to say that playing fighting games and most arcade games with it, it has been pretty good to me. You can do the Dragon Punch motions fairly effortlessly. So you can see everything seems to work fine. It's responsive, which again is incredibly surprising to me. Once I opened this and took it out of the box, I was not expecting much out of it. Just testing motions here for you guys. Now I'd say the hardest motion for me to pull off on this controller seems to be the super moves. But they do work. So generally I'd say it plays well but feels cheap. But if you have a MiSTer and, you know, some extra cash, I can't really, you know, fault anybody for picking this up if they want something that's closer to authentic, you know, without having to buy an actual stick and a USB adapter, and spend a bunch of time on their setup. I have no idea why I keep bouncing behind these guys. I guess it's just not paying as much attention as I should. But you guys get the idea. So what are my thoughts? Overall, it's a good stick if you have some extra cash and just want a nostalgic experience. But in general, if you're on a budget and just need a stick to play fighting games or just have a good arcade experience, then I would suggest to stay away. And pick up something that's around the same price range, like one of the Mayflash sticks, or even the offering from 8-Bit Do, which I didn't particularly recommend if you just wanted to use it for the Switch. But if you don't mind modding that stick or using it for other things other than the Switch, or in addition to the Switch, it's not a bad deal either. But stay away from this unless you have the extra cash and you're just feeling extra nostalgic. This is Recommend, and if you enjoyed this review, check out the other stuff on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.
Mega Shock Neo Geo!
"いくつもの伝説が生まれ、そして消えてゆく」狼は眠らない画廊伝説スペシャル。
SNK